Hey guys, welcome back. So in this particular video, we're going to be executing end-to-end data engineering project from getting data to building final dashboard. We're going to be using this particular architecture to build our end-to-end system, and you will understand this once we start executing this project by ourselves. This particular video is sponsored by Project Pro. Project Pro is a curated library of verified solved end-to-end project solution in data science, machine learning and big data. All the projects are created by top industry experts from top global tech companies. Here you will find end-to-end project solution, reusable codes, guided videos, 24/7 customer support, get access to more than 2000 code recipes which are absolutely free. Buy the subscription plan to get the access to 120 plus solved projects. Visit projectpro.io to know more about this. So when Project Pro reached out to me for this particular sponsorship opportunity, I told them that instead of just me talking about their product, why don't I just execute their entire project end to end on my channel? So here you will get one complete project that is available on Project Pro, and if you want access to more different projects, then you can go to projectpro.io, buy the subscription plan and learn more about it. I will put the link in the description, so do check it out, and let's get started with the project. So let's start by understanding what we will be doing in this project. So consider we have a client or a company who wants to run some ad campaign online, and they selected their main advertising channel as YouTube. They want to understand some of the initial questions they have, such as how to categorize videos based on their comments and statistics. What are the factors affect how popular a YouTube video will be? These are the things they want to understand before actually investing money in the YouTube campaign. Why YouTube? Because YouTube is second most visited website in the world. First is Google, second is YouTube, and third is Facebook. So you will be understanding how many people are there on YouTube and they can target easily. So we will start by understanding our goals and success criteria for the project. How we will measure the success for this particular project. We have a data ingestion, so we will have data coming from multiple sources. Then we will design ETL pipeline to easily extract, transform and load our data. We will also build a data lake so that we can easily organize our data and build a data pipeline around it. It should be scalable. We will be using AWS Cloud, and we will talk about it why we chose AWS Cloud in the first place. And at the end we will build a dashboard so that we can easily visualize and understand what is happening in the data. Now what you will learn in this particular project. First of all, you will learn how to build a data lake from scratch using Amazon S3. You will be joining semi-structured and structured data. Then you will also understand how to build a data lake, understand the difference between data lake and data warehouse, how to design data lake and how to properly partition different tables, how to build AWS catalog. We will use Glue for cataloging, how to write ETL job using AWS Spark. We will also understand some of the AWS services such as SNS, IAM and etc. We will also write SQL queries to understand and analyze data using Amazon Athena. Then we will write some script to ingest data incrementally and understand how to build a proper schema. And at the end we will build a dashboard so that we can understand what the data contains. Now before actually executing the entire project, first you need to understand the basic fundamentals. So let's start by understanding what is big data. Big data is a term for massive data sets with varied and complex structures. So you might have some structured data in some CSV files, or you might have some unstructured data coming from audio, video or images. As the size of the data grows, we also have the difficulties of storing and analyzing the data and visualizing for further processes and results. So at the end we will build our dashboard to understand what is happening inside the data, so that business can actually take the decisions based on that. So now let's start by understanding the timely decisions required for data in minutes. Because as the time processes, the data starts losing its value. So the data that might be stored for last 10 years might not have that much value compared to the data that got generated in last minute. So in the case of Amazon, whenever you receive any particular order, that is in real time and that needs actionable at that particular moment. As the time goes, then you can use that data for further analysis and generate more value. So basically the real-time data or actionable data are used in applications. Then a data scientist or a BI person will use the hourly or daily data to understand and gain some insights, so they can build a dashboard so a business person can understand what happened yesterday. So based on that, they can take some actions on that. Then we can also build some machine learning models using Jupyter Notebook and get more insights of our data. Now when we start working with the big data, there are a lot of challenges we face. Do you think that single DB can handle all of these users? So in the case of Amazon, we might have millions of users. So there is no way a single DB can handle all of these users. Now there is one more challenge, that data that got generated and data available for analysis. Because you can't use all of the data that got generated for the analysis. You need to pick right data that can provide as much as value. So let's start by understanding what is our today's dataset. We will be using top trending videos dataset that is available on Kaggle. What is trending? YouTube uses many factors including user interaction, number of views, shares, comments and like to make a video trending. So we will be using that particular data to understand what makes a video trending, and based on that we will also build our advertisement around that particular category. So let's go and check our dataset so you can easily download this particular data. I will put the link in the description on the Kaggle, so you can go to the link over here and you can understand the data. We basically have two types of data. One is the category that is in the JSON file. So this category contains each and every category that is attached to the videos available into the CSV file. So inside the CSV file we have multiple videos coming from different locations. This is for Canada, Germany, then France, India, Russia and everywhere. So we will be using different videos and their categories to understand what type of category actually ranks on the top, and based on that we can target our audience. So you can easily download this data. You can click download over here, or I will provide the link in the description. So based on that you can download that data and get started. So before processing data we need to understand two different things. One is on-premise data and one is using cloud. Now what is on-premise data center? Generally the on-premise is basically a company who purchases their own hardware and builds own data center. So in this case you will have to purchase, fix and upgrade hardware, install and maintain operating system and other software that are being used to process the data. But instead of using on-premise data center we will be using cloud. So let's understand what is cloud. Applications delivered as a service over the internet. So there will be a different platforms such as AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure. These platforms provide you different services online, so you just need to pay for those services and you can use the compute resources or different services they provide. So these companies have large data centers built by themselves, so you can rent some resources from them and use that particular thing to process your data or to do other things. So now let's understand why cloud is being so disruptive. So let's take an example. A 10 node cluster running on 10 hours costs the same as 100 node cluster running for 1 hour. So if you have some job that is running on large data set, and if you are using 10 node and that is taking 10 hours to process that data, that will cost the same amount if you run that particular job on the 100 node cluster. So that will only take 1 hour. So the cost is same, but the time it takes to run that particular job is very less. So on-premise requires extra hardware and clusters. So as you want to upgrade like RAM, memory, so you will have to purchase all of these things by yourself. You will also have to maintain that hardware, make sure the electricity is running 24/7, cooling system is working properly. Sometimes when you are not running anything on the server, then it becomes underutilized, or sometimes you are trying to run multiple jobs that it becomes overutilized. So it becomes really difficult to scale, and the data center is running 24/7, so you will have to pay for the hardware even if no one is using it. And that is the reason why cloud computing is so disruptive. 81% of the enterprise have at least one application on the cloud. 13% of more than 1000 employees enterprise have migrated their entire IT environment to the cloud computing. So the most of the companies are moving from on-premise data center to cloud computing. Now we will understand what is AWS. So AWS is built by Amazon. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. This is the leading cloud platform which has more than 200 services in the space of compute, storage, AI, ML, data lakes, analytics and Internet of Things. So you can see in this graph, AWS is on the top, then we have Microsoft, Google, Alibaba Cloud, Oracle and all the other cloud providers. So we will be using AWS to execute our entire project. So now the first step is creating AWS account. So the creation of AWS account is pretty simple. I will provide this particular link in the description so you can check it. It is a step-by-step, so you can go to Amazon Web Service page, create account, add some of the information such as your name, email ID and all the other things, and you can easily get started. It will also ask you some verification information, so you can provide that and easily create your account. Now if you want the video on that, then I already have the video on that, so I will put that link in the description so you can easily watch it. So once you create your AWS account, there are some best practices that you need to follow. First of all, always protect your root account. So email that you use to create AWS account is your root account. Then the second thing is, don't use your root account because your root account has all the permissions. So if your credential gets leaked, then you can easily lose your data or some of the services that you were using. Then always enable MFA, such as use Google Authenticator. Rotate all your keys and password periodically, so keep changing your password in the future. Avoid sharing your credential file. So when we will create our IAM account, that time you will understand what is the credential file. So never share your credential file, and always follow least privilege principle. So this part we will understand while we go and execute this project. So the first thing we will be doing is create our IAM account, Identity Access Management. So once you create your account, go to AWS console. So let me just pull my AWS console over here. So this is what the AWS console will look like once you create your account. What you need to do, you need to go to IAM, Identity Access Management, and here we will be creating one more account that will have less permission because your root account has most permission. So we want to use account that has the less permission. So go to user, click on to add users. Then you can name the IAM account as whatever you want. So in this case, I will write Darshil DE, okay, data engineering, okay, all listed Darshil project. So these are the different access types. So you need to click on the access key because you want to access the AWS console programmatically, and you also need to enter the password. So just click on the custom password and provide your own password over here. So there are basically two ways. One, the AWS can give you the auto generated password, and then you can also provide your custom password, and then you can maybe check this particular thing or uncheck this. This basically means, so once you log in next time, you will have to create the new password. So I don't want to create my new password, so I will click this uncheck. Then go to attach existing policy and give this particular user admin access. So admin access is basically you can perform all the actions but cannot see some of the things such as cost, billing, and all the other things. So make sure you just click on the admin access. Once you click the admin access, then click on the next. We don't have to provide tags. Tags are basically used to track down the cost. So for the sake of this particular tutorial, we will not make this complicated, and we will try to keep things as simple as possible, and click on the create user. Once you click on the create user, it will give you some credentials. So click on this particular thing, download CSV. This particular file will have two things. One is your access key ID, which is this one, and one is your secret key ID. Never share your secret access key to anyone. For the sake of the tutorial, I will show you what the secret key looks like, and after the tutorial I will delete that secret key so that no one can access my account. But so let me just open this particular thing and show you what it looks like. So over here we have like your username, your access key, and a secret key. This particular secret key you should never share it with anyone, because if someone gets access to your access key and a secret key, then they can easily access your account. I am sharing this for the sake of tutorial, but after this tutorial completes, I will delete this access key so no one can access my account. So don't worry about it. Now once you create your IAM account, like just close this and log out to this particular account and log in from your IAM account. So I'm just gonna do that quickly. I will click onto this particular link. Once you click on this particular link, it will redirect you to AWS account. Let me just use this. Then I'm gonna use my username over here, and I will provide my password. Okay, now I'm gonna be using my new IAM account that I created to do all the things. So this particular thing looks the same, but the permissions are different compared to root account. Now let's go back to our PPT and understand some of the things. Now once you create your IAM account, there are different ways you can access AWS console. One is using AWS UI, so that is basically called the AWS console. And second thing is you can use programmatically. Programmatically basically means using AWS CLI, which is command line tool. SDK is basically software development kit that is basically using Python, Node.js, and all the other programming language supported by AWS. For actually executing our project, first we need to understand what is region. So AWS region is basically a physical location around the world where AWS has their data center. So as you can see, in Mumbai they have one data center, in the north side of the US and the south side of the US they have some data center, and they have data centers all around the world. We already looked what data center looks like. Those are like the physical server. So they have multiple regions around the world, and in each region, so they have multiple availability zone, also known as AZ. So they have multiple AZ inside one particular region. So in this particular region they have multiple AZs. In this particular region they have multiple AZs, and so on. So we will be using AWS CLI to do a lot of things such as upload our data and run some commands. So you need to go and download AWS CLI. So that is pretty simple. Just go on Google AWS CLI and download. I will provide the link in the description, so you can go over here, and if you are using Windows, just download it. If you are using Mac or if you are using Linux, just download it, and you can easily install that CLI just by following the process. Now once you download AWS CLI, then you need to go to terminal, or if you are using your Windows, then you need to open your CMD and you need to write AWS. If you write AWS, then it will take some time, and if you get this message, that means AWS is installed. Then you need to use your credential to set up this particular account. So what you're going to be using is writing AWS configure and just hit enter. Then it will ask you your access key. So you can go to the file that you just downloaded, copy the access key you copied, just paste it over here, copy the secret key that you used, just paste it over here. The region that we're going to be using for this particular tutorial is North Virginia, which is basically US East 1. So you can copy this particular thing, paste it over here, and keep this as default, and it is configured. Now if I run some command, let me just clear this AWS S3 ls. So I want to list down all of my S3 buckets over here. So as you can see, all the S3 buckets that are present in my AWS account is being shown over here. So if I go to S3 using console, you will see the same bucket names that are being shown over here is the same as this. Okay, so you can access AWS console programmatically, and you can access AWS console using UI. There are two different ways, or you can also use the SDK. So once you're done with the setup of the CLI, then we will start executing our project. So first step is to upload our data into S3 bucket. S3 bucket is basically used for storage. It is called as the object storage, so you can store any files over there. Now there are some naming convention that we're going to be following to maintain our S3 bucket and to easily identify what is happening. So generally, if you are working in a large company, so they have like proper set of naming conventions, such as company name / if the data is raw, then you can write raw, then AWS region, account ID / different environments. So environment can be a development environment, testing environment, production environment. Then the source that indicates the different sources of data. So if you have data coming from such as IoT stream or some other relational database, so you can write the source, and you can also define the region. So we will be using similar naming convention to keep our data up to date. So the first step here is to create S3 bucket. So go to Amazon console, click on the create bucket, go to S3, click on the create bucket, and give the name as, let's say we will give the name as data engineering, then on YouTube. Let's give DE on YouTube, and this is where we will be storing our raw data. Then our region name is US East 1, so we will get US East 1. Then your account ID, just let's keep it as it is, and this let's give this as dev, because this is our dev environment. Okay, now the region, just select your region over here, keep everything as it is. We don't want to give the public access. This is basically if you want to provide the access publicly of your data, then you can give that. Versioning, we're going to be keeping versioning as disabled, because we don't want to keep the multiple versions of our data right now. And always enable the server side encryption, so we want to keep our data encrypted when we store our data onto S3. Just click on the create bucket and it will create bucket automatically. So it will take some time, and as you can see, data engineering, yeah, DE on YouTube, this is our bucket. So now we will be uploading our data onto this particular bucket. So for that, what you need to do, you need to go and pull out your terminal and go to the location where you have downloaded your data. So in my case, I have already downloaded my data in the documents. I've already stored my data projects, okay, inside this particular folder, and inside over here, as you can see, I've downloaded my data over here. So it has like category ID, CA videos. This is the same as this particular thing. So if you compare this particular data and this particular data, they are both the same. So go and download this data and put that particular data on the particular folder, and after that use your terminal to navigate to that particular folder. So in my case it is documents, so I'm going to be going to documents. Then let's say inside the document I have projects, and inside the projects I have my project CD and data. Okay, so if I print all of my data over here, as you can see, these are all of my data available over here. Now what you need to do, you need to execute some of the commands to upload this data. So as I told you earlier, you can access AWS using console and using programmatically, or you can write some of the commands, or you can use AWS CLI to interact with the AWS services. So we're going to be using some of the commands. I will provide the command in the description. So you can execute those commands just like me. So let me just copy this particular bucket name. So the first command you guys need to execute is this particular one. I've already written the command over here. So as you can see, I will just show you. So let me just zoom this little bit. Yeah. So I will provide the command links. You just have to execute this particular command. The basic understanding of this command is basically copying different files from your computer to S3 bucket. So if you execute this particular command, it will start uploading those data from your computer to the S3 bucket. So let me just open this, and if we just refresh it, and you will see the YouTube, inside the YouTube folder, raw statistics. Inside this particular, I have my JSON file. Now if you want to understand the detailed description about this command, then you can check out the AWS documentation. So what we basically did over here is that we used this particular command to upload our data into this particular bucket that we just created. This command will create two different folders inside our bucket. One is the YouTube. Inside that YouTube, it will create one more folder which is raw statistic reference data, and it will upload all the JSON file into one particular folder. So over here, if you go and if you see, we will only have the JSON file in one particular folder. Now same as that, you will also have to execute this particular commands that I've already written. So what this is doing is same. It is using AWS copy command. It is using same file name. So as you can see, ca-videos.csv is available in our file folder. So ca video csv, then d video csv, just like I'm using all of these files, then providing my S3 path where I want to store this data. So for each and every region, I'm just storing those regions data. So if we have like region as CA, then we have like region for D, we have region for, let's say, JP, RU for Russia, US for USA. So for each and every region, I'm creating different folders, and you will understand why I'm doing this as we go further in the project. So you just need to copy this particular command and just paste it on your terminal, and it will upload those data onto AWS. So let's take a moment and let this process to complete. So till our data gets uploaded to S3, let's understand some of the basic fundamentals that we need to know to execute this project. So first of all, we need to understand what is data lake. A data lake is a centralized repository where you can store all of your data. So everything will get stored in one particular location, such as audio files, video files, structured data, unstructured data. And using that repository, you can process your data and build a data warehouse and all the other different things, such as machine learning model, relational database, and all the other things. Now we will be first creating AWS Glue Catalog. So Glue is a service provided by AWS, and using Glue Catalog, you can easily crawl through the data. So let's say we have some relational database available over here, then we can easily crawl through that database and build a data catalog. So data catalog is basically the information about our data and what it contains. So for example, let's say in our data we have 15 different columns. So a data catalog will store all of this information, such as this data contains 15 different columns. These are different 15 columns with this data types and all the other information. So when we execute, you guys will understand all of these things in detail. So what is Glue Catalog? So generally we have data coming from multiple sources: Amazon Redshift, S3, RDS, and all the other different services. So Glue Catalog first discovers your data and actually extracts the metadata out of the data, then builds a Glue Catalog around it that you can use to do some ETL on top of it. So this is the basic architecture provided by AWS, and if you want to understand, you can go to the documentation and understand it, but we will do the hands-on practice so you guys will understand this particular thing in detail. So let's check if the data got uploaded or not. So as you can see, our data got uploaded to S3. Let me just refresh this particular thing and go to YouTube. So you can see inside this raw statistics reference data, we have all the JSON file, and if you go back and if you click raw statistics, you can see all the different data inside each and every folder. We have all the region data available over here, and you guys will understand why we used region for this. Okay, now once you guys have your data onto AWS S3, then you need to go to Glue. Just search on the AWS console Glue, click on this particular Glue, AWS Glue, and you will be redirect to the Glue console. Once you are on the Glue console, you guys will see something like this. Click on the crawler. Okay, so we will be creating our first crawler. So as you can see in this particular PPT, we discuss first we need to create a Glue catalog. So we will be using Glue crawler to crawl our data and build a catalog around it. So just go to Glue console, click on the get started, click on the crawler over here, and click add crawler. Let's keep the naming convention as DE. Let's go to let's open the S3 on the next tab so that it becomes easier to track down our data. Okay, just go to our project. Okay, so we will be using this particular name, and we will change this to let's say raw blue catalog 1. Okay, then over here you don't need to do anything, just click on next, then keep everything as it is, just click on the next. So first of all, you need to provide our S3 bucket path where we have stored our data. So for now we will be crawling our JSON data. So click on to DE, this particular thing, then raw reference data, because this particular folder contains all of our JSON data file. So you don't need to click on each and every file, just click on this particular folder name and just click on the select. This will give you the entire path so that you can glue crawler can easily reference that. Click on the next, then here you need to create the IAM role. So let's go to IAM again and understand some of the things. Let's open this onto the new tab so we can easily track it down. So inside the IAM we have multiple things. One is the user that we already created. So generally when you create a user, we have like access key, secret key to access AWS services. But when a service wants to access another service, so let's say in the case when a service such as Glue wants to access data from S3, it doesn't have direct permission. So we need to create a role for that. So creating a role will give a Glue permission to access AWS S3 data. So creating a role for Glue will give access to the data that we store on S3, so we can easily process that data. So just click on the create role, go to Glue, just find the Glue over here, then click on this particular button Glue, so you can easily create the Glue service role. Then what we need to give access is AWS S3 role. So click on search over here S3, and for the sake of this tutorial we will give S3 full access. So what we are telling is that whatever the data we have stored inside the S3, this particular service, which is the Glue, can easily access that. So just click on this particular S3 role, click on the next, give the role name as DE. Let's keep the same as GLE on raw. Let me remove this. YouTube Glue S3 role. Okay, just give your name, and as you can see we are giving the entire permission to the Glue to access S3 data. Let me just click on the create role. Okay, now where is our role? DE on YouTube. Now with the S3 you will also have to give one more permission. Is basically click on the add permission and just follow along. Is just search Glue, and there is one more permission that you need to give is Glue service role. So basically Glue service role which allows access to related service such as EC2, S3 and Cloud Watchlog. So this is one more access that you need to give, and you can, if you want to understand what type of access we are giving, then you can easily check over here. So it is giving more access to our Glue job. So we have S3 and the Glue service role attached over here. So once you create your role, then you can go to the Glue console, click over here, choose IAM role. You can refresh this and find the role that we created, which is basically DE on YouTube Glue S3 role. Click on the next, and now here we need to create our new database. So let's give DE YouTube raw. Okay, we will store our raw data over here, and click on the next, click on the finish, and over here click on the run crawler. So once you click on the run crawler, then this crawler will go to our S3 bucket. It will go to this data that we stored over here, all the JSON data. Then it will go inside this data and try to understand what this particular data contains, and it will build a catalog on top of it. So as you can see, this particular job is almost completed. It is currently on the stopping stage. So as you can see over here, it has a tables added is 1. So it basically added one table inside our catalog. So you can go to this particular tables over here and you will see one table added. Click on this particular table and you will see this created a catalog. So inside our JSON file we have like different columns, kind, e tag and items, such as this is a string, this is string, and this is array. And why this is array, let's understand that. So go to this particular Kaggle dataset. So you will understand this, the structure of our data. So this is a JSON file. So if you understand basics about JSON, we have the root. So this is how the JSON is built. So we have the kind, e tag, these two columns that we already got over here, the kind and e tag. Then we have items. So inside the items, this item is one more array. So inside the items we have like multiple items such as this 0, then 1, 2, 3, like this. Okay, so this is what currently the glue has built. And now what we're going to be doing, we're going to be querying this data, and you will understand we will get some errors. So let me go and click over the view data, and it will redirect you to AWS Athena. Now AWS Athena is a ad hoc query tool. Let me just remove this. So once you click on the view data, then you will be redirected to AWS Athena. Athena is basically AWS's ad hoc query tool. So over here you can write the query and execute and understand what is happening in the data. Over here you can write the SQL query and understand what is happening inside your data. So first of all, to use AWS Athena, you need to provide the output location. So click on this view setting, click on this manage, and here you need to provide the output location. So again, you need to go to AWS S3, go to bucket, and you will have to create a new bucket. We will give the same name as this, but let me write Athena job. Okay, just keep everything as it is. Click on the create bucket. So it will create the new bucket for our Athena job. So one thing that I forgot to tell you guys is that the name of your S3 bucket should be unique throughout the entire AWS universe. So you cannot have this particular bucket name, or you cannot use this particular bucket name anymore. So make sure you use unique name for your bucket while you're creating it, or you will get the error. Now over here you need to click on to browse S3 and use the Athena bucket that we created. Click on the choose and just click on the save, and you are good to go. Now what we're going to be doing, we're going to be querying this particular table that we just created using catalog, and see what we get. You will see we will get some error. And if you understand this error, that is basically it is saying that it is not able to understand this particular JSON data because it has some error over here, and it is saying that JSON is closing to this particular curly braces. Now why we are getting this, let's understand that. So as we understood our data, we have like different columns such as kind, e tag, and items. So these two are string, and this is particular thing is the array, and we only want this particular key, which is the item. So if you understand the JSON file format, it has the key and the value. So we don't need these two keys, we only need whatever the data we have inside the item. So AWS catalog is not that smart enough to understand what kind of data we want to pick. So over here we need to do some pre-processing or the pre-transformation before actually creating the crawler. So this is where the ETL or the data cleaning part comes into the picture. We have the item, so we need to first use some kind of programming language or some kind of ETL tool to extract this particular item and store that particular data. Then we will build a crawler on top of it so that we can get this information such as ID to join to our different tables. So why AWS Glue is not able to do this is basically there is a thing called as SERDE, serialize and deserialize. So if you go to AWS documentation, you will understand they have specifically mentioned that whenever the JSON format you use, okay, it should provide everything in one line. So all the curly braces, all the single row of the data should come into this particular format. It should not have some kind of spaces or some kind of like pre-formatting, because if it has the pre-formatting, which is basically used for humans, because we understand this particular thing in much easier way than understanding this particular, because if you have your all data into one single line, then it becomes easier. So if we had like kind, then over here if we had like e tag items into one single row, then it becomes very difficult to understand what data contains. So generally we format JSON file, but the formatted JSON file does not work for the computer. So for the glue, it needs everything into single line. So what we're going to be doing, so we will use this JSON data and we will convert this JSON data into column and row format, which is basically Apache Parquet format. Okay, so for that we will be using this particular structure or the pipeline. Okay, so we have our JSON data that is stored onto S3. Then there is a service called as AWS Lambda. Okay, so inside the Lambda you can write simple Python code, or you can use any programming language supported by AWS. you can do some transformation, again store that data onto S3, that is the clean version. Then you can build a glue crawler, and then you can do the Athena query on top of it. So we will be designing and we will be building this particular thing. So what you need to do, you need to go to AWS Lambda. Just open this Lambda onto new tab. Over here, click on the create function. Now we will give the function name same. We will follow the same our naming convention. Just copy this. I'll paste it over here. USA Lambda JSON to Parquet. Okay, so we will give this name. Then as for the runtime, we will choose Python 3.8. Keep these things as it is. For the execution role, so just like AWS Glue, we will also have to create one more role for Lambda. So we will have to tell AWS specifically that give access to all of the data that is stored in S3 to Lambda, so that it can execute, read and perform some operation on top of it. So you will have to perform the same operation. Go to roles, click on to create role. Over here you will have to select Lambda, just click on next, then give permission to S3 full access, just then go to next, give the role name, which is basically US is Lambda role, okay, or more like S3 Lambda role. Then click on the create role and it will create the role for you. Then go to Lambda again, use existing role, click on the refresh, and you will be able to see the YouTube that the role that we just created. Advanced settings, keep it as it is. We don't want to go to advanced. Then click on the create function. So once you create your function, you will see something like this. You can write your Python code over here. So to save time, I already written the code so you guys can understand. So if you have like basic Python knowledge, then you will understand this particular code, but I will explain you what this particular code does. Just paste it over here. I will provide the link of this code in the description. So the first thing is over here, we will be using AWS Wrangler. AWS Wrangler is basically a library is used to access files that are stored inside the S3, so you can directly access those files and read those files. Then we will use pandas function. If you don't know pandas, I'll suggest you to take a tutorial and understand basics of Python and pandas. I will provide the link in the description so you can check it. Then we will use OS library and URL lib to understand this. So over here we have like some environmental values. So generally if you have like some kind of password or some of the things that you want to use in the code, generally you should not store those information inside the code. Rather than you should store those information inside some external file. So inside the AWS Lambda, you can store those information into the environmental variable that we will look right now. But other than that, what it is doing is it is basically reading the files from the S3. So here it will use the environmental variable to get our bucket name. Then it will use the key that we will provide inside the environment variable. It will read those files, it will normalize, and it will extract the items that we basically want from the data. So over here we don't want this kind and e tag, we want this particular item. So we will extract the item part from the data frame. So if you don't understand the basics of data frame, again I will suggest you to learn about the pandas and basics of data processing using Python, because this is the out of the scope of this particular project. This project series is for someone who understand the basics of the programming language. So just understand, just take some tutorials, watch some videos, so you will get the idea. And then we will write that particular data in Parquet format to the S3 bucket. So inside this particular environment variable, we will store some of the information such as the output location for our process files, which is also called as a clean file. Then we will provide two more information. One is basically the catalog name, so we want to create the catalog for that, and the table name that we want to create for that. And one more thing is the write data operation, which is basically whether we want to append the data or we want to overwrite the data. And this part you guys will understand as we go further in this particular tutorial. So just follow along what I'm doing and it will start making sense once you actually execute an entire project. So go to configuration, go to environment variable and click on the edit, click add environment variable. Over here we have the key as glue catalog name, provide the catalog name as this, add more environment variable, this catalog table name that you want to provide. So This is basically clean statistics reference data for the JSON file that we had. Then S3 bucket path. So over here we will have to create one more S3 bucket to store our cleaned data. So let's copy this particular thing. Instead of create bucket, click over here. So instead of raw, we will write it as cleansed version. Let me put the hyphen over here. Okay, keep everything as it is. Okay, don't change it. Click on the enable encryption and click on the create bucket, and this particular thing we will be using. Where is this? Yeah, with this particular bucket we will be using to store our output. Right, is at s3///YouTube. So this is the same structure we're going to be following to store our output, which is the clean version. And at the end we need to provide the right data operation and put it as append. Okay, now let's save it. Okay, so we are done with this. So once you create your environment variable, then you need to go and test the function. So in the AWS Lambda we have the configuration test event where you can easily test your functions. So you need to use s3 put event. So it will create some JSON kind of structure. So you need to provide the bucket name and the file that you want to test on this particular code. So let's go to our s3 bucket. Over here, this particular thing, YouTube reference data, we will use this particular URI. So first of all, you will have to copy the bucket name. So I'm just going to copy the bucket name. So you will have to replace example bucket to bucket name that you just copied. Same over here, example bucket name to bucket name. And the second thing, you need to provide the key. Key is basically whatever comes after the bucket name and the file name. So I'm just gonna copy this particular path, copy s3 URI, just click on this and paste that particular key over here inside the key and remove everything from s3 bucket. So we don't need s3 bucket, we just need the end part, which is the key, and click on the save. Okay, now we're gonna be actually testing the function whether it runs or not, and we will see there will be a lot of different errors coming while we are testing. So let's click on the text and let's see what is the first error comes. So first error is basically it is unable to import Lambda function. So let's understand what is this particular error by going to our PPT. So let me just open this. So before understanding the error we got, let's understand what AWS Lambda is in detail. So AWS Lambda is one of the service of AWS, which is the compute service. It is serverless. It basically means you don't have to manage all the servers by yourself. It is highly available and scalable, and it has some limitation because you cannot use AWS Lambda for really large data. We are using AWS Lambda right now to process very small amount of data. So it has some limitations. So it has like 15-minute timeout. So it can only run code till the 15 minutes, and after that it will start timing out. It has some limited memory and the CPU, and it keeps changing as AWS adds more features. So this is what the current architecture looks like. Okay, so we have data coming from multiple sources. In our case we have the Kaggle, so we have the data coming from that. Then we have some landing area, so where we have uploaded our data. So all the raw data we uploaded using the AWS CLI that is got stored over here. Then currently what we are doing, we are processing that JSON file and storing that particular data, the clean version, inside the second S3 bucket. So we can use AWS Glue or we can use AWS Lambda. So currently we are using AWS Lambda to process this data and store that data onto the clean version. Then we will go and build all the other things as we go further in the project. So this is the kind of overview of the entire structure that we're going to be building. So let's understand the reason behind the error that we got. So generally when the Lambda runs, it creates the new compute environment for each and every run it creates. Let's understand we have like 10 different Lambda functions. So it will run that particular code in some kind of a compute environment, and it will not have all the packages it needs to run that particular code. And that is the reason we have the Lambda layers. So Lambda layers are attached to the compute environment, and it has all the different packages installed that the code requires to run it successfully. Now again, this is not a Lambda tutorial, so I will not go deep dive into it. I will try to explain you everything in a simple manner, but there will be a lot of different information that I might not be able to explain you right now because of the time constraint and this project is quite big. So if you want to understand more about the Lambda function, then you can go to AWS documentation and understand more about it. But in short, Lambda does not have all the packages that you need. So you need to use Lambda layers to provide all the packages and other dependency that your code might be using. So what you need to do, just go to your Lambda, click on the add layer, and if you are working inside the North Virginia, then it has this particular package as AWS Data Wrangler already. So you just need to click on this, click on the version and just add it over here, and it will start supporting your AWS Wrangler, that the error that you were getting. So it will take like few minutes to add this particular thing. And now let's test this, and now let's see what the error that we get. I will assume that we will get one more error, which is basically the timeout error. Let's see. So over here, as you can see, we get the error, which is the timeout error. I have already executed this project, so I know what kind of error that you guys gonna be getting, and I wanted to show you that what type of error you guys will get. So the more errors you get, the more you get to learn about that particular thing. So I wanted to keep these errors as it is. Now once you get the error, then you need to go to configure, general configuration, and increase your timeout duration. So as we talk inside our PPT, it has like 15 minutes max timeout, so we will give this as like, let's say 3 minutes. Okay, so if our code takes, if our code takes around 2 minutes to run, then 3 minutes are enough. Now let's click on the test. So now we got one more error. So if you remember, in our code we are trying to create a glue catalog and glue table over here. So we need to give permission of glue to Lambda also. So over here what we did, we just gave permission to S3 when we created the Lambda role. We just gave the permission to S3. Now go and click onto S3 and give, now go, so now go and click on to add permission, click on the attach policy and click glue. And let's search for the glue service role and attach this particular policy. Now once we have this policy attached, now it should work. Now once you get this particular message, this means that it actually created one particular file inside our S3 bucket. So now let's go to our S3 over here. Now we will go to our bucket, which is the clean version, DE on YouTube. DE on YouTube. Go to YouTube and you will see one particular file available over here. Now if you go to glue that we already created over here, if you refresh this, then you will see the clean statistics data, and over you will see the kind, etag, id, all the clean version that is just created. Now how this got created is basically using the code. So inside the code, when we write this particular data to S3, we also define that the database name and the table name of the glue. So what it is doing, it is also writing this data to the S3 bucket. It is also creating the glue catalog and the table onto the glue. So if you understand the basic Python, then you should understand this particular thing. So over here we can see the table has been created. Now we can use this table, click on to the view details. So over here we can click this table, click on to the view data. It will take us to Athena, and you can now easily query this particular data. So I'm just gonna run this particular thing and it will run it, and as you can see, we can see the structured version of our data. So we converted our JSON file into the tabular form. As you can see, we have IDs and all of the different columns available over here. So you can understand the transformation that we did from the raw data that we had on YouTube, the DE raw data that we were getting some errors, to the DE clean version. Now you can easily get, and you can easily query this particular data, such as where ID is equal to 1, and you can run this particular thing. I'll have to use the semicolon over here. Okay, this is varchar, so I'll have to put this in single string, and it should run, and it should return this single particular row. As you can see, now we can easily query this particular data. So now what we did is basically we use the landing data and we clean that data and put that data onto this particular S3 bucket. Now our next task is basically to clean all the data from this particular bucket. Where is that? The S3 bucket, the JSON data that we had. Let's go to the raw data that we had over here, YouTube, all the JSON data. So next task will be to use and build some kind of the automation system that we will be able to convert this data and put that data onto the clean version. And the second task will be to use this region data and build a catalog of the glue data and then join those data to understand more and build a dashboard on top of it. Now that particular thing we will do on the next part of this video, so you can check the link in the description that will be uploaded onto the Project Pro channel. So the second part of this video will be uploaded onto their channel, so you can continue with this particular project.